Welcome back to the Rangeless Travel Podcast. We're your favorite adventure travel hosts. I'm Britt, and this is Ryan. Together, we travel the world by plane, train, and '89 Ford Sportsmobile, capturing the beauty, adventure, and culture in every corner of the globe. Currently, we're traveling the U.S. in an old van with our two dogs, Layla and Cedar. Every Tuesday, we share stories and tips to inspire you to book that next trip. So go ahead and don't be shy. Follow along with us at Rangeless_ on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Let's dive in. Welcome to this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast. We went from backpacking Southeast Asia to moving into our '89 Ford Sportsmobile. And we have found that there is some similarities and lots of differences to backpacking versus van life. So today we're going to go through kind of comparing the two to see which one's right for you, if you're traveling and you want to try out van life, or if you're van lifing and you want to go backpacking, or if you don't know what you want to do, but you know you want to go on a grand adventure and you're trying to figure out which one's right for you.
Yeah.
So first things first, budget.
Budget.
Let's start with budget.
Okay, so backpacking is probably easier to start with.
Yeah, backpacking is good. Let's start with both of them are going to be as expensive in luxury and as basic bare bones as you make it. Because let's be real, you probably have a car now unless you live in a major metropolitan city. And if that's the case, you can live out of your car and start van life or car life. I mean, I remember I used to follow someone that lived out of their Prius. So, like, you can start it super bare bones, but it's going to be uncomfy. And let's be real, with backpacking, you can start it. You don't have to go buy a new backpacking backpack. You could pack up your Jan Sport that you've had since the 7th grade and, like, go on out.
You could. I wouldn't recommend it, but
me
you
neither,
could definitely
but
do it.
It can be as luxurious and as bare bones as you make it. I want to start out there. So this is kind of, when it comes to budget, this is how we view it. This is definitely biased from our point of view.
Yeah, so with the backpacking, I think you could, a good like starting point is like $500, your bag, any gadgets you might need, like your travel adapters, your
packing
cubes, your like travel toiletry set.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff.
All in would probably be about $500 plus your ticket out.
Plus your ticket out, yeah. Is about, yeah.
Yeah.
But then
Van life
is...
You have to buy a van.
Or if you already own like a van, you have to outfit it, or a minivan or whatever, a car.
Or even if you buy like a cheaper van, now you have to fix it.
Yes.
So I think that depends. The cost of your van is going to depend on how comfortable you are with mechanics. Because if you are not comfortable, like myself, like I can't fix it. So I would look at a newer
vans,
van.
Or maybe a pre-built, but those are very expensive.
Yeah, the Ford Transit, I feel like, is like the one you see. A newer Ford Transit's like what, 50,000? 45?
For a new one,
yeah. Now again, you can, if you're working remotely, and we'll talk about working a little bit, you can lease it.
Yes.
And you look at the van like your rent.
Monthly budget for both backpacking and van life are going to be in and around the same place once you're initially set up.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about the cost of rent. Like $1,500 a month, I think, is enough to cover your fuel, your food, your insurance, everything.
Cell phone, internet.
Yeah, all of the add-ons that you need to live sustainably in a van is all, and that's also going to apply to backpacking, like your hostels, your transportation, your food, all of that, all your activities, things like that. It's all going to add up to, that's what we budgeted, at least for our Southeast Asian trip.
Yeah.
And that's what we budget for now as well.
Yep. Yeah, and it's about the same.
Yeah, and it's not easy to come up with that kind of money either for an extended period of time. So that's where we work, that's where we focus on working on the road. But as for budget, yeah, the vans, a cheaper van is going to cost you more in the long run to upkeep it. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Because that's the thing. Because if you're backpacking, I mean, I guess you can have large, unforeseen expenses as well. I guess, like, if you miss a flight, that can be a large.
If you get hurt somewhere and you need
medical, but that can happen in a van as well.
Yes, it can.
You know, so that, you know, it is what it is. But, like, you could miss a flight, so you could have large unforeseen expenses. But I feel like in a van, those unforeseen expenses can be more unforeseen. Yeah. Like a little less able to remove them. Like if you have mechanical issues is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, if you have mechanical issues, it could be very, very expensive if you can't do it yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's where, like our van, we had a bunch of problems when we first got it. We first got it back.
She worked great when I first got her.
But when we first started making plans to move into it, she had a bunch of problems.
Yeah. We got a new engine.
And then that engine decided to start turning itself off all the time and without warning. And yeah, there was a bunch of problems. The brakes needed work. And like we're like 6 months later and I've done all the stuff to it. And fingers crossed, it's been great now. But if I had to send that in to a mechanic to get the work done, it would have cost us probably 10 grand.
Yeah.
To do all that was done to it.
Yeah.
If not more. So
what you're saying is you have to have a master's in mechanical engineering.
No, you don't have to have a master's in mechanical engineering, but you do need to either be comfortable doing like YouTubing stuff and learning how to fix things, because every vehicle has its own quirks and different ways of doing things, or you have to be ready to shell out and spend the money on a mechanic, or spend the money up front and get a newer vehicle.
Yeah. And that goes with, what are you doing for work while you're backpacking, and what are you doing for work when you're living in a van? Now, either one of those things you can work remotely.
Right.
Backpacking, you're out of typically the country that you live in, so you probably don't have a work visa.
No.
So if you're working remotely, you may be in a different time zone, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. Some people, it's really good because let's say you are some sort of editor or content creator. When your colleagues and your boss or your, the people you're creating for are awake, you're asleep, which means when you wake up, they've already sent you the emails. You already know what you're supposed to do for the day. You do your work, and then when they wake up, the work's magically done for them.
Yeah.
So it can work out well. Now, what else you can do is when you're outside the country is you end up volunteering or doing like work exchanges. So I've worked at hostels as like a rep.
Right.
I've done like photography. I've done all kinds of things. But if you don't have the work permit, you're volunteering. So pay can be really low, and it could just there could be just
room and board with a small bit of expenses or something like that.
There could be no pay at all. So you have to really vet those places before you go in. Which is fine, just something to keep in mind. Where when you're working in a van, we have Starlink, so we have internet everywhere.
Yeah, we're uploading this right now from our Starlink in the woods with no cell service.
Yeah, and we have T-Mobile, so, and there's no cell service, so.
Yeah. But Starlink and the new technology now, like we have a full solar setup in the van, we have water, we have everything we need to be able to come out here for 2 weeks at a time and work. It's like working in an office, except we're here.
So you can work remotely. Now, if you're doing van life, also a lot of people do seasonal work, which is really good. I've done seasonal work before. I did seasonal work years ago through KOA Works, which is the KOA campgrounds. And it's like, it used to be, I don't know what it is now, it was like $30 for the year to sign up, and you get a list of all the KOA's campgrounds that are hiring. And again, they don't pay you that much to do the job, but I got room and board. I did get paid a little bit, and I was the director of the camp program, which was a really fun job. And you meet a lot of people, but there's also seasonal work, like you can be like a river guide, you can do a hiking guide, there's so many. So seasonal work for van life also works really well, even if you're like a bartender. And let's say you go into a tourist area for the summer and then you go wherever for the winter.
Yeah, or even if there's like big events going on, like
yeah, a lot of people do events.
like Sturgis. I heard of a bunch of bartenders going to Sturgis
yeah.
for.
But even if you're not bartending, like all of the different festivals and stuff,
everything.
there's all kinds
there's
of
all
stuff.
sorts of work going on for that.
Yeah, so I would think in vans you have the opportunity of seasonal work because you're
Mobility.
typically in your country.
Yes.
So you can work legally, so there's opportunities for more pay. And I know in the U.S. a lot of people work remote, but then there's a stipulation that they need to be in the U.S.
Yes.
So if that's the case, you're golden as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else for work? Anything else? No, I think that's it for work. Work exchanges. And, there are work exchanges in the U.S. as well. KOA Works is one of them, but not so much. But there's also Woofing and Workaway and a bunch of different ones. But again, you just have to vet them to make sure they have good reviews, so you're not just taken advantage of. So they can be a little, you have to stand your ground with the work exchanges.
Yeah.
Next up is movement.
Movement, yes.
So if you're backpacking, let's say, there's a lot of more established routes.
Yes. It's everyone, everywhere you want to go typically now, this isn't everywhere, but...
And that goes a lot for, like, beginning backpacker, too. Like, if you're just looking into backpacking, like, it's...
You're gonna go to the hot spots, which are gonna have transportation. They're gonna have hostels.
And you're not gonna have to figure it out on your own. Like, even if you're solo traveling, like, it's the moment you get to a hostel. Like, I remember the first time I went backpacking, I literally just landed in Bangkok. And I was like, so where does everyone go after Bangkok? And people were like, oh, then you go to Chiang Mai, and then you go to Pai, and then you go here, and then you go there. And I'm like, cool. And you just kind of like pick up on it. Where if you are van lifing, there are routes that are established, right? So like a lot of van lifers go to Baja California in the winter, and they do Alaska in the summer, and like everywhere in between. Also like Joshua Tree is a huge place for the winter. So there's like some established routes, but you're more so on your own.
Yeah. It definitely more so on your own than, well, because you're less, you're not exactly forced to be in proximity with other people. You can be as far away as you want from everyone. You can be as isolated as you want.
Which I think with backpacking, it's very similar. But it's a little bit.
I mean, it depends on the hostel or the place you stay.
Yeah, and then it also like depends on the place you travel to, right? Because I was like, well, yeah, beginner backpackers are going to go to Bangkok, and there's going to be, approximately 1 million kajillion other backpackers there in like wherever you go. But if you go to a place that doesn't have such a established backpacker culture, like let's say like I visited Taiwan. I was by myself in Taiwan because it doesn't have such an established backpacking culture. So it really depends. But with van life, I feel like it's easier to fall into secluding yourself.
Definitely easier. And a lot of van lifers like warn against that, like the isolation of van life, that it can be that way. But we're just getting into it, so like I haven't experienced that yet. I know you've done it before, but it's definitely something to think about for sure.
Yeah. And then I think movement in general, when you're in a van, there's just more that goes into the movement.
Yes.
Because you're responsible for more stuff.
You're responsible for, first of all, your van. Like, if anything happens to that, you're kind of knackered. So you have to move this, like, 3-ton machine around,
But just, like, it kind of leans into being a little bit less spontaneous.
It does.
In, like, the freedom, like... You're still spontaneous in van life. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you get in the van one day, you just drive somewhere else. But when everything you own is just on your back, it's just easier to move it.
Yes.
Because there's less movement. But at the same time, you're also now at, like, the mercy of
public transit
and this, that, and the other thing, where if you're in your van... it's like a studio apartment that you're just driving around. So when you pull up somewhere, like there's yes, you have to park it, but then like your whole house is there. So you like wake up in the morning and have your own coffee, and you wake up in the morning and you have your own routines, and it's just, you can set those things where when you're backpacking,
it's less like, it's still on you to get to like the bus that you need to get the ticket that you need to get. But once you get on that bus, you're on the bus. Yeah. It's the bus driver's job to get you where you're going. You just pay attention.
Yeah, you just have to make sure you get off at the right stop.
Yeah, it's not like you're the one responsible for getting everyone safely to the next spot, which is the case with van life. And van life is surprisingly, it takes a long time to move.
Yeah.
Like to get going.
Yeah, like we got here and it was kind of late, so we didn't like fully set up camp.
Yeah.
But then like our first day here was yesterday, and we pretty much spent the whole day kind of just like setting up camp.
Yeah. Like, because we have a pop top too, so that makes things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, like the high top transit and things like that, like I guess would be a little bit less. But even with that, like we have extras, right? So we have a motorbike on the back that has to come off and it's it detaches.
Yeah.
Then we have an awning that's like a 2-person job to bring out. So then when those things are broken back down, we got to put it back and we got to reattach everything and make sure everything's secure. And on top of it, we have dogs.
Yes, we have 2 dogs and they have needs all the time.
Van life dogs go hand in hand. But
yeah, and I think van life lends itself a lot more to
having
bringing
animals,
your animals or bringing your dogs or your cats or whatever pets you have. It's a lot more easy for that.
Yeah.
Like, because you're not dealing with passports and visas and all that for the
No,
animals.
I know of people that do travel with their dogs, and I have heard like great things about traveling with your dogs, particularly like the smaller ones or South America. I've heard a lot of people traveling with their dogs in South America, backpacking with them. But I feel like van life with dogs is just like peak dog ownership.
Yeah, they love it.
And peak van life.
Yeah.
Fur has a dog, like let's be real. And we have 2. So now before you were talking a little bit about security, so I want to go in on that. Because I think with security, whether you're backpacking or in a van, just like moving a lot in general, there's going to be a lot of overlap. So you're always going to be, especially like as a woman, I know that I'm like always aware of like just like the vibes of where I am, my surroundings, who's around me, what kind of area I'm in, and things like that. Like just to notice who's coming and going. Those are all things that are going to overlap whether you're in a van or in a backpack. But then I think that each ones have specific things.
Yeah, there's like nuances for sure. I think like because backpacking, there's less of your belongings to look after.
Yeah.
Like you're not likely to be walking around with like a bunch of money. Well, like you're going to have a little bit, but you're not going to have like crazy amounts of money. You're not going to have like crazy amounts of equipment or anything or all your possessions. You're going to have what's in your backpack. So, which might be all your possessions, but it's still less things to keep track of and less things to go wrong.
Yeah.
So I think for that, you're more looking for like scams, like people ripping you off.
Yeah, just your tourist scams.
Tourist scams, pickpockets, things like that. You know, don't leave your bags down somewhere, like, you know, lock them away in a locker.
Which you can fall into those same scams, though, when you're in a van. Like when you get out, because sometimes you're a van lifer, but then you're also still a tourist.
Yes, but I think where people van life, there's other risks too. Like, because a van to some people could be a target, you know?
Yeah, especially like if you're on a trailheads and stuff, like you can get your van broken into, and because it is like your home studio, right? Like it's your studio on wheels, like that's like your home. So if someone goes in and breaks in, van lifers tend to carry a lot more stuff than backpackers do. Because, I mean, we traveled in 40-liter backpacks.
Yeah.
What are we carrying around? We don't have space for anything.
No.
But in our van, I mean, I feel like we have so much space now because we went from such a small amount of space of stuff to, like, if someone breaks into your studio apartment, like, that hits hard.
It does. It's like, I think it hits harder than if someone, like, got into your bag.
Yeah, because like what are they?
It feels like someone broke into your house. That's
yeah,
what it feels like.
It's just a little bit more.
Yeah, so, and like, yeah, you just got to be more wary, like where you're leaving it, where you're parking overnight, where you're stopping up, and kind of like do things in a way that, like, if you were find yourself in a dangerous situation, you're able to get out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Like, we do things like, we can, like, rotate our seats in the front to face the back and do all that and set it up so that it's, like, more of a living room. But at nighttime, I always turn the driver's seat back to face forward, so that way
If we needed
if we
to get
needed
out
to
really
get out
fast.
really quick, we just jump in the seat and go.
Yeah.
And like we always know where the keys are and things like that. So in the middle of the night, if something happens and we need to get out of there, we can do it really quickly.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, and we already touched on this, having 2 dogs is a huge security plus when it comes to having a van.
Absolutely.
Because they act as like an alarm system, a warning system, and people who are up to no good tend to stay well away from dogs. They're afraid of them typically.
Yeah.
Because they're dangerous
It's
animals.
just adding more headache to whatever they're doing.
Yeah, they're going to pick the next guy. That's what's going to happen. It's different things. It's the same thing, security, but it's like different nuances that you have to be aware of. That's all.
Our thing is we always joke around and say van life is traveling for homebodies.
Yes.
Because you just bring your home with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference. At the end of the day, you have your own bed that you can sleep in every single night, and it is your home.
Yes.
So if you are a true homebody but you want to travel, van life is for you.
And like, I know it's like cliche to say bring more baggage and all that, but like you literally are bringing more baggage, and the fact that you're bringing more stuff, you get more attached to the things you have too. So it's like more of a, I don't know, for me at least, and I'm just new to it. So like, I know when I first started backpacking, I was a little bit like on edge with things, but like we've been in this, like a week now solid. Maybe I'll like ease up on it because like right now I don't like leaving the van parked in the city by itself without anyone around or anything like that.
He wouldn't leave the van at all.
I would. I went to walk the dogs, but I didn't want to leave it alone.
He had eyesight on it when he'd walk the dog.
Yeah, but like I'd be like a mile away, but I could still see it. It's hard to miss it.
If you want more from us, you can get to us at Ranges_ on YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts, TikTok, and Instagram. And until next week, bye.